Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I'm here with my man Luka Sutalo, which is the English pronunciation of the name.
That's the way it is.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, buddy. I'm a first year student at U of T. I don't live on campus. I live an hour and a half away. U of T is a pretty fun school. The way I got here is a little bit different, which we can get into if you want. A lot of people treat university as it's like this death trap. That's what I plan to do, right? I plan to go back to Europe, live in Croatia at some point in my life. To buy a house in Canada, that's not going to happen. For someone your and my age, it's just not realistically going to happen. Don't get me wrong. We have a much better than America. In America, they are like $150,000 in debt by like their third year. We pay $2 million for a shoebox in Toronto. I think that a big part is we pay a lot in taxes, and we don't really see a lot of that in return. We have a healthcare system, but we wait a lot. Is the quality there? I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Political movements and groups in general start with a small group of people, and they kind of grow. That's what you can see is through different various revolutions, various organizations. They start small, but they grow. You need the right group of people to actually affect change. There's even studies that show that people who volunteer tend to be happier and tend to be more connected with themselves. People that are poor aren't really connected that well, obviously because you're working all the time. Religion does play a part in terms of like bringing people together. At the same time, there are people who are power hungry and they will use that to divide people and attack each other. MKUltra is this experiment done by the US government to try and find mind control techniques. And they did this on unwitting patients. They did it all over America, they did it all over Canada, mostly in Montreal. They would try to use LSD and these different kinds of drugs to see if they can mess with the human psyche and make, in their words, people that could kill but not know what they did. You have a absolutely safe and legal experiment when all the documents were destroyed. So that's all I'm going to say, like mainstream media it's a complete joke, at least. Like, people have twisted the truth, distorted it. Just because, you have different chromosomes doesn't make you a better person or have an easier life. People have a lack of parenting. Who do they turn to? They turn to these idiots on TikTok, people like Andrew Tate. I don't think that NDP would win. I think that their ideology scares people. If you're in a job every single day, you want to blow your brains out, you're going to hate your life, you're going to become a very just nasty person to be around. Go for what really speaks to you. And I'm not saying go and get a degree in something that's useless, like lesbian dance theory. Please don't do that. It's a waste of money.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Not sure what episode this is, but today I'm here with my man Luka Sutalo, which is the English pronunciation of the name.
That's the way it is.
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. I'm going to get into a good conversation here.
Oh, hopefully.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell people kind of about yourself, who you are, why'd you want to come on here? Just to kind of give everyone an introduction.
Well, yeah, I'm a first year student at U of T. I'm a commuter, if that makes the difference. I don't live on campus. I live an hour and a half away, roughly. So that's pretty cool. U of T is a pretty fun school. The way I got here is a little bit different, which we can get into if you want. And yeah, so that's about that. That's my little introduction.
That's it. You're one of the few people I hear saying U of T is a fun school.
Well, I mean, you have to make it what you will.
Absolutely.
That's the way it goes.
Optimistic outlook.
Oh yeah, that's the only really way you can deal with these kinds of things. A lot of people treat university as it's like this, I guess, like a death trap, like this pressure cooker. When I was applying to universities, I was very close to going to New York, but so I'll get into it a little bit. But
tell the story.
Yeah, so a wonderful time. We're gonna go back to 2022. The World Cup just ended, and I wasn't doing very well in school, right? So functions, I should say. So I went to my math teacher. I say, hey, what's going on? I'm not doing well in your course. What's going on? And she told me to get a tutor, and I was very kind of like, damn. I pay taxes because I used to work at the time. I used to be a cook, and this is what it's going to. So then I got kind of fed up, and we had to do a test, and I got I think the calculation was I needed to get a 70% to stay in the course and actually have a shot at university. So then I was like, all right, well, I got a 67. So I was 3% off. And then what ends up happening with me is I was frustrated. I put all this effort in, and for just to go, tits up. So then I decided to drop the course. I did night school, so I was working, and I also did night school, so I was up until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I had to, do a private school because my school wouldn't let me take calculus normally. Mm-hmm. So I took a private school, which is, again, controversial because a lot of people, it's like this debate in Canada where people, specifically Ontario, because grade inflation is so high here, people will want to ban private schools or those OVS, all that kind of stuff, TVO, ILC. But I think it has its benefits. I mean, that's how I got into school. I had to literally do it because I know other choice, right? So yeah, I did that. It was a fun road. So when I was in Europe abroad visiting family, I was studying as well because I had no time, and it's the way it goes. So yeah.
So you're born here.
Yeah.
But your background is what?
Croatian.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Ethnic
I was at my mom's trainer's girlfriend.
Oh,
is
shit.
Croatian.
Oh, very nice.
So, and we went to her church.
Oh,
a few months ago.
Oh, which
back
one?
In November. It's a Seventh-day Adventist church.
Oh, really?
And it's in Toronto. So I don't know how big that religion is amongst Croatians.
No, it's Catholic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, but no, either way, whether it's the religion or not, I think the culture, something about all the people in there. Everyone seemed, well put together. Everyone beautiful. Everyone's good looking. Everyone's,
Thank
clean.
you.
So
Flattering.
I love Croatia. Croatia is a destination I definitely want to visit, whether it's like travel, or I've even like kind of flirted with the idea of maybe moving there if Canada keeps going on a downhill slope.
Yeah.
As it is right now is what I believe, which also might be controversial. But
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the numbers, you'll see that, right? Like a lot of people, I actually know a lot of friends of mine who are planning to move as soon as they finish university here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I plan to do, right? I plan to go back to Europe, live in Croatia at some point in my life, and work from abroad, because that's kind of the only way you can do it. Like, let's be real here, and I have a lot of friends who are from not born in Canada. So you were born in Canada, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
From GTA?
I was born, it's like an hour and a half north of here. You know Orangeville?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, small, but it's,
I know what
it's
you mean.
close.
Exactly, right? So to buy a house in Canada, that's not going to happen. For someone your and my age, it's just not realistically going to happen, especially with OSAP and with the student loans. I mean, don't get me wrong, we have it much better than America. In America, they are like $150,000 in debt by like their third year, typically. But we have it less. But regardless of the situation, we pay $2 million for a shoebox in Toronto. Yeah. We pay so much more in terms of food, in terms of gas, in terms of basically everything, and we have lower wages as a result. Yeah. Now, whether that's a result of other policies, I don't really know. But I know what you mean. A lot of people want to leave Canada, and I feel the same way too. I don't like the way that the country's headed. I think that what needs to be done is, I think that a big part is we pay a lot in taxes, and we don't really see a lot of that in return. We have a healthcare system, but you look at it, we wait a lot. Is the quality there? I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Like, I'll give a personal story. So my brother, I got into a bit of an accident, I had to get stitches. He waited 8 hours in the hospital, bleeding profusely. Only after 8 hours he got stitches.
Unreal.
Yeah, so it's like, God forbid there was like an actual worse situation.
I'm sure there's plenty more stories like that too.
100%. 100%.
What do you think about the idea? I'm born in Canada. My mom's Canadian. Both your parents are Croatian?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a closer tie to a country outside of the one you're born in, whereas me, I'm really like, I have Canadian blood.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a part of me that thinks, this is like turning into a shithole. I want to leave. But then also there's like a patriotic side where it's like, I don't know if that's the responsible move. Like, if bad people are ruining my land, right? Ruining the country that I was born and raised in. Is the right thing to do to just give up and leave? Or is it like, do I try to fix this? Like, when I say me, I also mean there's a huge community that feels the way I do. Where it's like our country is failing. I think if everyone left, then that could be detrimental. Whereas if we tried to fix it, maybe that would lead to a better outcome. What do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it all really depends on where do you see yourself? Because let's be real here. Canada's not the same. The Canada we have today is not the same as you and I grew up in, right? Housing was cheaper, things were cheaper. Yeah. But I don't know. It's like, I will say this about Canada, is that we have like this weird sense of patriotism here that we're not Americans, right? Even though we have a lot of similarities towards them. People, there's like this whole sense of pride. And what's even crazy about patriotism in Canada is that it's a very left-wing thing. People like, I shouldn't bring politics in this, but it's true. Like, if you look at people that are more, I guess, for Canada patriotic, they'll tend to vote a certain way. Right, and it's actually reversed flipped in terms of America. America's patriotism is more right wing, and Canada's more left wing.
I didn't know that. That's not something that I really get a sense of here.
Well, I mean, talk about there's always this sense of anti-Americanism with a lot of people, right? Yeah. It's like oh, we're better than America. It's like, okay,
right.
Well, give me an example how. But going back to your question about whether or not you should leave, I think it depends on the individual. Like, do you think that you can make a meaningful impact to change your situation? That's also another question that can flip into the idea of, because I talk a lot about I don't talk a lot about on this camera, but in general, I think about protests. Yeah. Protests, obviously, I'm not saying outlaw protests, but for me, I don't do them. And it's this weird idea of does your individual action, even though by itself means nothing, as part of a larger group can create a movement? So it's the same thing with voting. If I did not vote in any election, it's this mentality of my vote will not change who becomes the next prime minister. Mm-hmm. But if everyone thought that way, or if everyone from one side thought that way, then it would actually have an impact. Mm-hmm. So when you're asking me about, do I think that I can have an individual impact? Is it about my individual impact, or is it about the community that believes that as a whole we can try to do something with it? Well, I mean, that's a great question. It really is. It's hard to say. Well, I know what you mean. one vote's not going to change everything. But the beauty about, I guess, the system we have, and at least in this part of the world and other parts of the world, is that it's one man, one vote. It's not 1 billionaire, 1 billion votes. It's every person has a single vote. But a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you start political movements and groups in general start with a small group of people, and they kind of grow. Right. I mean, that's what you can see is through different various revolutions, various organizations. They start small, but they grow.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that. I don't know. I think that you need the right group of people to actually affect change. You need obviously a sizable amount of people voting for you, but you also have to have a message that resonates with a lot of people to actually put that into plan. Because if you're going to sit here, I don't know. Let's say you're on what's a street? I don't really walk around Toronto a lot.
Charles Street.
Right? Running around talking about I don't know something else. No one's really going to vote for you. They're going to say, "Oh, this guy's cracked out of his mind.
Yeah.
Got to throw him in. We got to throw him in the can."
Yeah.
But no. I think that you definitely need the right group of people and the right policies. Here's one thing I will say, and this is, I guess, with people in general, especially young men, is that we have to say the issue today with a lot of people are very atomized. They feel very alienated, right? And that's a big tragedy. That's I think one of the biggest issues we have in the world. Not only that, but suicide's a big problem in this country, right? It's a big problem all over the world, but especially in countries like Canada, America, Japan. It's huge. Korea, it's also very huge.
Yeah.
These are countries where suicide's a big problem. Now, I'm gonna talk more about North America in general, but I think that has more to do with the results of what the term social capital is?
Social capitalist, what does that mean?
So social capital is basically this idea that people are more intertwined with their communities, through organizations, through charity, through volunteering, through various churches, institutions. They're very connected with themselves, but that's kind of declined over the years.
Got it.
Now, some people will attribute that to the lack of family. Some people will attribute that to, I guess, more polarization. And I don't know. It's if you want good books about it, books I'll recommend is stuff like The Fractured Republic, books from Robert D. Putnam called Bowling Alone is a very good, hits home on this very well.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole idea is that countries let's take America for example. When people talk about how America was this strong country in the 50s, but people tend to forget is that America was just as volatile as it is today.
Volatile in what sense?
In terms of politics, in terms of who to vote for. There was still disagreements there. There was still I wouldn't say hatred, but there's still it was like I said volatile. But there was a stable social capital to it. If you lived in a town, you'd be volunteering at your local church, you'd be volunteering with organizations, helping people. Mm-hmm. There's even studies that show that people who volunteer tend to be happier and tend to be more connected with themselves, right? And more so generally, people they actually did a study where they compared people that are in terms of income, how connected they are to their community, and they found that people that are poor aren't really connected that well, obviously because you're working all the time.
Yeah.
When you're richer, people tend to actually have more connection with their community. They also found that people that are poor don't tend to marry as much, while people that are richer tend to marry more.
Interesting.
Right? So, that's one of those things where it's it doesn't, obviously I'm throwing these statistics at you or whatever, and it doesn't really mean anything, but in the grand scheme of things, I think that when it comes to building a healthy country or a healthy society, you should definitely have people involved in their community, and this has been proven time and time again.
I agree.
I
completely agree. What do you think about this is also something you said about family and polarization. Another thing I think about in terms of the health of a country that's declined over the years is religion. Yeah. And I asked this on a previous episode. Do you think that it's right, or do you think that it's healthy for a government or a country to kind of work from religion, based off of a religion? So before, the U.S. could be considered a Christian country, I would say, but now it's become that's kind of devolving in my opinion.
It's a secular, atheist kind of country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does that have to be in place?
What do you mean by that? In terms of they'll consult the Quran or the Torah or the Bible to make laws?
Yeah.
I don't know. See, that's the thing. Now it becomes a question. Let me ask you this then. So, are you religious?
I am spiritual.
Spiritual. Okay. So let's say you lived in a country I don't know, a Muslim majority country like Saudi Arabia, and they start imposing laws for you, you have to grow your beard, you can't trim it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that?
It's a good point. Yeah,
right.
It's a good point.
So it's one of those things where, if you're religious, I'm religious myself, I'm practicing Catholic, right? But it's one of those things where if you, how do I say, when you put yourselves in the shoes, what that actually would mean.
You wouldn't be able to claim yourself as a free country.
No, you wouldn't be able to.
Because the U.S. claims to be the home of the free, so the land of the free, home of the brave. Yeah. So you can't do that if you're going to base it off religion.
Yeah, exactly, right? Now, don't get me wrong, is religion very important? I think it is. I think that it's, people make the argument that if you could be moral without religion. Now, I'm not going to get into that debate because I'm not very well versed in that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, when you look at stuff like the foundations of like a healthy country, or like religion does play a part in terms of like bringing people together, right? Now, at the same time, much like politics, there are people who are power hungry and they will use that to divide people and attack each other.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it depends on who you have in power.
Do you think that all these issues are just like a creation of bad leadership and dumb ideas, or do you think it's purposeful?
I mean, that's the thing. If it was purposeful, it would seem like a very long play from like, let's say, like the 1960s all the way till now.
Yeah.
I mean, like the welfare state was expanded greatly under Lyndon B. Johnson during the Vietnam War, and that kind of has the effect of, you know, making people want to work less and make people want to, you know.
Yeah.
There was actually a study done in Canada where they gave people, I think, like an extra couple $100 every single. It was in Ontario, actually. I forget the name of the study, but they actually found that people that got this extra money, when they lost their jobs, they actually seeked it out less, and they actually didn't go out as much to replace their jobs. They just kind of hoarded all this money together, and that's one thing. I don't think that it's purposeful. I think that it was a bunch of people trying to gain votes. They put these policies in place, and what happened as a result?
Yeah.
You know, you have like the decline of, you know, society. You have a decline of societal institutions, like, you know, your local, I don't know, bowling alley, for example. Yeah. Your local, you know, Boy Scouts or whatever. Or I don't know if the Boy Scouts changed the name. I'm not well versed in that. Please don't come after me, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that it's intentional. I would say that it's more people trying to, you know, gain power for themselves. They'll promise the whole world, and, you know, look what's happened now. I mean, there's a reason why there's a saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's talk about rent control. I mean, I'm pretty sure, you know, you rent this place, right?
Well, technically, yeah.
Yeah, technically, right? Now, the thing about rent control is, like, you know, rent control is, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the problem with rent control is, on idea, it sounds very nice, but what you end up having is you have people hoarding apartments, right? So there's people who are literally
who don't live in them. You're sorry, no, you keep explaining it.
No, what I'm just trying to say is like the consequences of rent control, right? Like, again, that's a policy. It sounds good on paper, but you look at the realities of it, it's actually affecting a lot of people, and it's not affecting them positively. Now, don't get me wrong, is it nice to have a $400 apartment in the middle of New York? Yeah, it's fantastic, right? But you actually look like the logistics of it, it's not really incentivizing people to make more housing. Yeah. So housing is just stuck artificially low, but the supply is even lower because there's no incentive to produce more, right? What would the money that would have gone from rent or whatever that would have been used to, I don't know, fix the building or, you know, at least clean the place up, is now gone, because believe it or not, we live in a country where profit basically determines how people wanted to do things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real here. Do you want to make something? Do you want to work a job you make 5 cents an hour?
No.
You want to work a job make $100 an hour?
Of course.
There you go, man.
Yeah.
So when you have these kinds of policies in place, what you end up creating is, like I said, shortage of supply, excess demand, and there's huge shortages. So what ends up, another big part is black markets start to spring up, right? Yeah. Like the Soviet Union, all these communist countries that had price controls in place, it literally had the hugest black markets ever, right? So that's one thing as well, because you couldn't get certain goods in these countries, so you would smuggle them in and charge for an even higher price, right? So that's what I mean. It's one of those things where, you know, again, it sounds good on paper. I mean, hey, we all want to make the big guy pay, but we all want to go after the shadowy cabal. But what ends up happening as a result? Well, the masses pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, when people say tax the rich, it's like, okay, but a lot of times the rich don't pay their taxes, right? Who can hire the best accountants? The rich, right? Yeah. So who has to foot the bill? People like you and me.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's that.
I completely agree. And this seems like common sense to me, because it's a very logical argument that you're making. It just makes sense, I think, whereas tax the rich, the idea in and of itself is just emotional.
Yeah.
And you have a group of people in the country who half of them work on logic, half of them work on emotion. This is, I think, why there's even the big political issues that there are of the day. And sometimes you need emotion over logic, because, once again, obviously we're all human beings, and you want to, like a lot of these human rights things, even though when you look at the system, if we put these incentives in place, this makes no sense. But on the other side of it is human suffering. So it's like there's definitely a balance.
100%.
I think that the biggest, divide, because a lot of people see the political, oppositions as conservative or liberal or Republican, Democrat. I don't even think of it in that way anymore. I thought of it that way when I was in high school, but now it seems really more just like establishment versus anti-establishment. So there's the big like I believe corruption goes on both sides. I don't
100%.
think corruption is a purely liberal or purely conservative idea.
100%. We can get into that actually if you want.
Let's get into it. Because I think the bigger, I'm an advocate for small government. I don't know about you.
Same.
I think the bigger it is, the more power they have, then they're going to lean towards corruption. It's
Exactly.
impossible to not.
100%.
But what do you think about
Well,
that?
you're not wrong about that. I mean, like so here's one thing that's pretty scary. That's just going to blow your minds, guys, all right? You know, people talk about, especially in Canada, we talk about Canada's a much better country than America, but you actually look at the history of Canada, you'll find that we did a lot of f***ed up things in this country. You know, we participated in the MK Ultra experiments within Montreal.
What's that?
You know, MK Ultra is this experiment done by the U.S. government to try and find mind control techniques. And they did this on unwitting patients. They did it all over America. They did it all over Canada, all over Canada, mostly in Montreal.
Yeah.
And they would try to use LSD and these different kinds of drugs to see if they can mess with the human psyche and make, in their words, people that could kill but not know what they did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have amnesia afterwards. Now, CIA ends up shutting the program down after it got exposed. And they claim that they didn't find anything. So some people disagree, some people agree. I don't really know much about. I'm not going to comment on what happened because I don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
By the way, you have a absolutely safe and legal experiment when all the documents were destroyed. So that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Love me the CIA. But Canada did the same thing. We participated in these experiments, and to this day, there's actually a lawsuit. I don't know if it got settled, but there was a lawsuit happening last time I checked against the Canadian government to admit fault for their role in the experiments. There's actually a really good video by the Fifth Estate, which is like CBC show, where they talk about Canada's role in these experiments, and they found that Canada did work with the CIA. They did fund it. In fact, the guy that actually ran the experiments in Montreal was the head of the psychiatric, I guess, like organization in the whole world at one point.
Yeah.
Right. So it's pretty scary. Like Canada has a whole history of just like, corruption and things that we've done. Now, I'm not saying that invalidates Canada, but it doesn't, I'm also saying that it doesn't put Canada as high as, some other, actually I shouldn't say that at all. Every country's done messed up things. There's no great country. There's no objectively good country because once you do crime, you kind of, lower yourself, but it's a scale of those crimes.
Yeah.
So, like I said, Canada's done a lot of bad things in its history. So we've definitely gone through that. Like CSIS, for example. You know what CSIS is?
Nope.
So CSIS is basically the Canadian version of the CIA, right?
Okay.
They were caught multiple times spying on citizens, literally tracking people on their phones during COVID times. I'm not going to lie. I think that the COVID times, it was pretty scary not being told not to go to your house. You couldn't eat there because, of your vaccination status.
Yeah.
Now, whether you believe in liberty of the individual, security of the collective is completely up to you.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that it's a very dangerous precedent. And that's what the whole trucker thing comes into play, right? Is because now, see, I know I'm talking about role of government, but this kind of overlaps because you have a government that's doing these experiments on people and is actively f***ing with them and basically ruining people's lives. In fact, a lot of people, those MK Ultra experiments in Montreal were never the same afterwards, right?
I believe it.
Right? It's like, think about it. When you're in a coma for 5 months, being pumped full of LSD, you're not going to be the brightest tool in the shed. So the sharpest tool in the shed, right? You're going to be basically a shell of what you once were. So it's one of those things where you actually look at stuff like the role of government, you'll find that there's a lot of corruption, a lot of overlap. So that's why I brought up the truckers, because whether or not you agree with what the government did there is irrelevant. The fact that people were able to have their bank accounts seized is a pretty scary precedent if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's the way I see things. Is like when you have a government that grows and is able to overstep or breach the rights of its citizens. That's a very scary precedent because it's I would say one step closer to authoritarianism, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like look at America, for example. We have there's a Patriot Act where they can literally listen and literally watch you through your webcam. That's illegal.
Yeah. That's crazy.
That's pretty insane.
That is insane.
And
because most of the media coverage on a lot of these issues, because once again, I'm impressed by how much you know. I want to ask you later on how you learned all this stuff, but a lot of the coverage of this is American, and America is talking about we have to prevent our country from falling, these corrupt people, blah, blah, blah. In Canada, I feel like this country's basically already down. Like they're worried about their country falling. Canada's already destroyed at this point, I think, not to sound pessimistic, but there's an interesting thing about news and media. Mm-hmm. And Tucker Carlson's been around Canada recently.
Have you seen him?
I've been watching it, yeah. And he's trying to he's talking like, I'm going to free your country, blah, blah, blah. But we'll take a quick break for the camera.
Yeah, sounds
just
good.
Overheated real quick, and then we'll jump back
do what you got to
it.
do, man.
Something with media that I wanted to bring up before the cameras went off.
It's all good.
Recently, there's been a huge decrease in people's trust in mainstream media, mm-hmm. and there's three things, this is what I heard, this is what I've learned. Three things that people look for in a news source of information: trust, truth, and credibility. So the mainstream media has credibility. They might have truth, you could debate that, but they have, a huge budget to find out what's going on. But then it's the last one, is the trust.
Yeah.
People don't know if they're manipulating the facts that they've been given. People don't know if they only want to tell part of the story. So it's gotten to a point where you now have a higher trust rating in like these independent podcasts or fucking YouTubers even. People are flocking to them because it's like, I don't even know if this guy knows what's going on, but I at least trust him to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know he's not trying to blindside me or tell me a fake story, whereas these guys, yeah, big name, big budget, everything's good, but I don't know if like they want the truth, or sorry, I don't know if I trust them. You know what I mean?
Well, you're 100% right about that. Like people get the information from like podcasts like Joe Rogan or whatever else because they feel like that's the best source. Now, whether you believe that or not is completely up to you. That's your own decision, right? But I think that it really comes down to the fact that people have seen like mainstream media it's a complete joke, at least. Like, people have twisted the truth, distorted it. I think that the biggest watershed moment in terms of like our modern history, like people say that trust in media plummeted when like the Watergate scandal happened, or at least trust in government, which coincides with trust in media, but we'll get to that in a bit. I think that I don't really agree with that. I think that the biggest watershed moment, at least that was recent for us, was the Iraq War. Because think about it.
Yeah.
When were you born roughly? I'm going to guess like 2001?
03.
03. Okay, yeah. So you were born like when the war happened. I was born in 05, right?
Yeah.
So, at least in the West, right? We were at least in America, Canada, a lot of NATO, I guess like centric countries were basically told Saddam Hussein's the biggest terrorist sponsor. He's got all these mass weapons of mass destruction, and we have to go get him. Well, they showed up, and what did they find? Nothing.
Yeah.
They found literally nothing. So people felt very disillusioned. The fact that they had people on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, Sky News telling them all about how there's this evil man in the Middle East. You got to go get him. You got to go tackle him. You got to go make that guy pay. And what happened? People died. There's all like the statistics like 500,000 or 1 million Iraqis. Actually, I don't have. There's like a well over, I think, an insane amount of people died that war, and mainly civilians too. So what you really see is people felt lied to. The fact that there's how many servicemen died in Iraq?
Yeah.
A couple, like 2,000 maybe less. I'm not too sure about the number there, but compared to the loss of civilian life, for what? People felt lied to when there was the war. What's another word that people felt? Like people felt lied about everything. People felt lied about the war in Vietnam. Oh, the war is going great, boys. We're gonna get them. We'll be home by Christmas. We're gonna be home for the summer. And then the war lasted like 15 years.
Yeah.
It lasted an insane amount. Right?
Yeah.
So people felt lied to and everywhere because, like I said, there's this pattern of people lying, and that's also because of like CIA and different kinds of intelligence organizations and corporate interests and private interests, at least, going into media and learning that you can bend things to your will.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'll give you an example. So there was a hearing that was done for I think it was called the Church Committee or whatever, which is used for MK Ultra, but there was a specific clip you can find on the internet, and I've seen it before, where they asked one of the directors of the CIA, or one of the people that was part of the CIA, do you have anybody embedded in the media that you can say, and at which outlets that you can say? The CIA spokesman said, we will only talk about it when the camera's not rolling. This is live on video. This is a real thing. I'm not making any of this shit up. They literally said, we will only talk about it behind closed doors. So they admitted to themselves, and they literally admitted that there was people.
When was this?
This is like the 70s. You can look it up. It's called like Church Commission, Church Hearing, and you can literally find like there's like you probably find like an archive of it somewhere, but they talk about how they've even admitted themselves that there was literally people embedded in the media. So when you have like anti-government stories or whatever, you don't really know about that. Like, do we know what's happening in Guantanamo Bay? We know there's torture methods going on there, but we don't know the extent of that. We only have people that got released, right?
Yeah.
Now, whether those people are exaggerating or not, all depends. That's another thing also I want to mention is like everyone, regardless of who you has an agenda. You have an agenda, I have an agenda. Yeah. Everyone has their own beliefs. They all try to, I wouldn't say push, but they try to encourage people to see things their way, right? So be careful of who you trust. Be careful of where you read your information from, because everyone's trying to get you to believe a certain angle. If you watch CNN, you'll come to the conclusion that people like that are on the right wing are evil white supremacist terrorists, that we have to get them all, that Joseph Biden is our God, we should worship him. No, I love Joe Biden, you know. But regardless, like, you know, they'll say stuff like that. But if you watch people like on Fox News, they'll say, well, these stupid liberals, you know, we got to get them. You know, they're over here doing their stuff. We got to get them, man.
Yeah.
You know, they're being absolutely terrible. You know, they want to bring in people from across the world, and it's like, you know, there's two complete polar sides. Right now, this gets even more exacerbated when you go to like far left or far right. You go on people on the far right, they'll talk about how there's an evil conspiracy led by people to try and, you know, replace others, or I don't know, that there's like, if you watch Alex Jones, like you'll see what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, like if you watch people on the far left, they'll talk about it's all just a big capitalist, you know, like plot to destroy you. And what you basically have is two versions. There's the reason why horseshoe theory is a thing, but I'll get to that second. But like, if you go on like any kinds of media, you'll find that it's very exacerbated what people believe in, right? You'll have distortions of like the same story, but complete different takeaways, right? So I'll give you an example. So Trump gave a speech talking about the U.S. border. This is like years ago, talking about how coyotes are coming over the border and taking people. Now, people on the left wing interpret that as that this man's lost. He's insane. He's talking about actual coyotes, the animals that eat shit out of your trash can, or grabbing people and bringing them across the border.
Yeah.
Not true. What he was actually talking about is that coyotes is a term for human smugglers, right? So that's an example. So that right there is a takeaway. Now, I got to find like a right-wing version of like a bad takeaway, but I guess a takeaway would be the U.S. election, for example, right? So people who, now it depends on what you believe in, but there's people who believe that the election was rigged, right? So there's those that they did the Arizona audit, for example, right? So people that believe that the audit was rigged, they petitioned the local government in Maricopa County, the most populous county in all of Arizona. By the way, if they had found fraud in that, I guess, like county, they would have basically flipped the whole Arizona thing for Trump, but anyway, so they alleged that there was fraud there. So they go and they do this audit, and they found literally nothing. They found legit nothing. They spent thousands of taxpayer dollars for a guy who had no computer knowledge, by the way. He was just a guy that just hired off the street, and they found no voter fraud. But people on the right claimed, oh, we got him with this bombshell report. And it's like, really? Okay, where's the evidence then? We can't show you, it's under hiding. It's like, all right. You know, that's what I mean. Is like you have like two distortions of the truth. You have two people taking away different interpretations of things, right? So here's another example. So let's talk about people not feeling, I guess, you know, connected themselves. But let's focus more on men on broadly, because a lot of people talk about how, you know, men feel alienated, which is true. Male suicide and male depression is a big problem, right? So a lot of people have this takeaway. They'll believe that, well, that's because of, you know, toxic masculinity, all that stuff. Not really true. You know. Now this is real heated right now.
I'd say it's almost the opposite reason.
Oh, really?
I would think so. For male suicide?
Oh, 100% say that's the opposite. It's the complete opposite. It's like, look at this right now. There's how many men today, all right, there's like, let's be real here. If a man goes public with like a rape accusation, who's going to believe him? Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Like, if a woman goes public with a rape allegation, who's going to believe him? See? Yeah. So it's like, it's completely different, right? I'm not going to say here and be like, oh, men have it so difficult. Not saying that we don't, but like, you know, it's not exactly a glamorous life. Yeah. You know, just because, you know, you have different chromosomes doesn't make you a better person or have an easier life. Yeah. Right? So with male suicide, at least with male depression, it's a big problem because people, like I said, men feel very alienated. You know, so I think a big part of it is a lack of fatherlessness, like a lack of proper parenting. Mm-hmm. Right? So when you have people have a lack of parenting, who do they turn to? They turn to these idiots on TikTok, these idiots on whatever website, and they idolize them. They idolize people like Andrew Tate. Right? I think Andrew Tate is, I would say, in my opinion, a little bit dangerous for men because he has this idea. He'll portray these ideas, right? He's like, men are depressed. Like, okay, thanks for stating the obvious. How do you plan to fix that? Oh, bitches, get money, whatever, right? It's like, okay, well, now you basically just throwing money at your problem. You're not going to get anything for it, right? When in reality, the reality of the situation that it's much more complex than that, right? So,
I hear you. So then, in that context, I'll push back on that one because
it's all good.
I would have an opposite reaction. I understand what you're saying. Andrew Tate isn't like the be-all and end-all solution to men's problems. But when you have a generation that's suffering like that, do you think a force like him, despite his flaws, can at least like help a generation? Like, obviously not get them to 100%, but at least pull them out of the mud?
I wouldn't really think so. No, I think that the big problem with men is that a lot of people don't know about the really beautiful, I guess, resources out there. Like I'll give some advice for some young men out there, right? If you want like proper solid advice, you should probably read books. Shouldn't get it, or at least listen to like lectures or speeches. You shouldn't be listening to some guy, like half naked smoking a cigar in the studio. You probably shouldn't do that. You should probably listen to people like Earl Nightingale. I would recommend personally. Napoleon Hill is a very good motivational people. So I would go to like people that are like very well renowned for their lessons. Those are people I would say that definitely help in terms of motivation and getting your mindset properly. Another big thing, and this is also gonna blow your mind. If you're a little depressed during the winter, we all are. Take vitamin D. That'll really help you. That'll really get you going, man.
I took one this morning.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
So there's that. Working out's also it's just like a given. If you work out, you're gonna feel better. You're gonna feel more, there and more, I guess, mentally sound. So there's that. Like a lot of things that you can do, you can not only do by yourself, but also like find proper guides to do it. You don't need some guy giving you like, oh, the women today are these horrible are coming out to get you, right? But that's also flipped on the women's side as well. You have people who are going around saying, oh, these men are these terrible people. They're only there to just take you. And it's like, well, no. Yeah. Just don't get me wrong. They're very bad people. There's bad people on both sides. There's no like, you can't just generalize and say, oh, these group of people are amazing. It's like, no, there's issues, right? Yeah. So I would say that there's that. I would say that when it comes to at least for young men, there's resources out there, but you're given, you're not really given any kind of I would say support in terms of like actually knowing who to turn to, because you're turning to people who really have no, I would say, like, let's be real here. Like, what's the whole like end game with these like people? You know what the word manosphere is? Yeah. Yeah. Like, what's the end game of these manospheres? Well, it's to basically get you to buy these like shitty programs talking about it's going to guarantee get you girls, guarantee to fix your life. But what do you spend money on? You spend money on literally a guy writing on a fucking whiteboard, being like, yeah, actually, so when you have more money, when you sell more of a product, you get more money, and you can use that to make more things. And it's like, okay, thanks for the free business lesson I paid $4,000 for. Yeah. It's like. So a lot of things that people teach you can find readily online for free. Like, you'd be surprised this kind of knowledge you can find on YouTube, or even like books. You can find PDFs. This is a wonderful website. If you're in university, you'll know what it is. It's called LibGen, and you can find anything you want on the Internet Archives. Also, bless. Zed Library is also pretty blessed as well. So these are things you can use to find actual like knowledge and resources and actually better yourself. If you feel like you have to turn to people on, like, I don't know. What's the you can use example here? Like if you feel like you have to turn to people on TikTok to give you like genuinely sound advice, you are not a bit of a shitty situation. Yeah. Because again, you're basically getting like distortions of truth. That's that's the way that I see things. I don't know.
I want to ask you about your process for deciphering what is, I guess, good information versus bad information, whether that be in terms of how true it is, how well it can help you because, you're different than other people. What is your process from getting to point A to point B? So I'll give you an example. My girlfriend and I, when we're looking over, let's say, a hotel to go to, I trust, I guess, the star number. So whatever, 4.7. I also trust the SEO. So, the website or the hotel at the top of the list is going to get more consideration than the one that's 5 kind of pages over. She trusts more like kind of like the human reviews, like people that, write things in. What are they saying? What do they say it was good about it, bad about it? So we have different processes for deciphering the value of the hotel. For you, whether it's about politics or whether it's about physical health, mental health, all this stuff, you just named a bunch of sources to go read things from. When you have someone like Andrew Tate, obviously it's very accessible because everyone's on their phone. Yeah. They know what he's about. They hear him say some things that they know they agree with. When you're going on these websites and you're looking for, sources of information, how do you know that this author who you know nothing about is going to give you something that's going to benefit you?
Well, in terms of like, because you have to kind of separate in terms of politics and like health. So we'll go over politics over. If you're going to get like, let's say news from like a war or any kind of very tense situation, your best bet is to try and, it's going to sound really corny, but you try and find sources that have like political, I guess, people that are reporting from both sides. So some people that are pro side 1, pro side 2, and then try and find, in terms of what was written, try and find things that overlap and actually are true. And if you're able to find more overlapping and true parts, you're able to kind of clear away the fat from like the true story, right? So let's say, for example, the war in Ukraine. Every single person that's there, at least different news sources, they're going to have some overlap, but they're all going to have different takeaways in terms of various, advances, various technologies that are used. So your best bet is to try and find sources that report on it, but have similarities in their stories, and then try and build like a coherent story from there that you can at least find that is true, right? In terms of physical health, you're better off reading like medical journals and stuff like from JSTOR if you can find a way to get onto that. I would not consult like Google. If you type anything in Google, like if you're like, my left arm hurts, you're going to get you have cancer. That's not good. I would recommend, going through that, and also talk to your doctor. That's a big chunk of it. Definitely talk to your doctor. It's pretty helpful. In terms of mental health, well, literally going outside improves your mental health substantially. So I don't know why people don't do that more, right? Even like going for a walk. If you're online for like 15 hours a day, you're browsing certain websites, you might want to have to, get outside a little bit, release some of that tension. That's what I would say. Mental health is something here's what I will say. When it comes to mental health, everyone's process for dealing with things is different. The way that they develop themselves and grow as a person, grow as people. So what I would say is, try and find what works best for you. Now, don't engage in any kind of vices. I think one of the biggest things that destroy people are alcohol, drugs, and pornography. I think those are the three biggest killers of people in general, in terms of their vices.
Have you been successful in avoiding those three?
Well, I mean, I would say, I would say for now, not much of a drugs kind of guy, but when it's New Year's, you always try to get sauced up.
That's
a different story. But I will say this though, so if you can avoid those three vices, you've already done like a big chunk of it. Stopping any kind of like addiction is crucial, because if you're able to remove yourself and at least have like a clear thought process and not be dependent on some kind of dopamine hit, you've already done like half the battle. Another half of the battle is like building like a stable foundation. So like I said, read journals, read good books, don't read trash. Don't read some guy that was a news anchor 30 years ago talking about how his coverage of some war changed his perspective on something, and it's like, okay. I mean, I don't know how telling me that the camouflage that Iraq used in the first Gulf War is going to help me at all with my depression, but thanks, man. So that's what I would say, is definitely look at like what works best for you in terms of your mental health. Like I said, taking small steps is like the best way to deal with things. You can't make sweeping changes overnight. If you have a fucked up sleep schedule, which I do, I'm not gonna lie, I sleep 5 hours a night. I don't sleep very much. That's partially because when I was in high school, I did a lot of work, so I kind of transitioned over, and I really got out of it. And you can definitely see it on me. I got these big ass bags on my face, right?
You're looking good, man. You're looking good.
Oh, yeah. So I would say that I would definitely say find, like I said, what works best for you and do that. But I'm no expert. Like I said, I know I keep saying no expert. I'm genuinely not. You read your own sources, get your own conclusion, and then go from there. You shouldn't listen to people summarizing information for you. You should look at the information for yourself and draw your own conclusions from it. Because when you, like I said, mainly base your information off of like, I don't know, one news source, you're only going to get their interpretation of the source, which is going to be vastly different from, maybe very vastly different than the way you see things. Right?
Good point. That's a good point. Talk about the balance between, I guess, evidence and intuition, because this is something I think about a lot. And you're talking about like get different sources, and you need to, you just gave me your process for how to decipher certain information. And you gave the example earlier of the election and with other stuff, whether it's right wing, left wing. And these people don't have any evidence for their claim. I think that sometimes, not even talking about the election at this point, sometimes someone can make a claim based off intuition without evidence and still be right. So how do you prevent kind of being this kind of like dependent on there has to be facts, and if there's no facts, then the thing I'm thinking can't possibly be true? Because then you get to a point, as we're talking with corruption, it gets to a point where government can manipulate facts.
Jeffrey Epstein is an example.
There you go. So if you have an intuition on something that even though none of your sources are able to support what you're thinking, does that mean you should completely then flip over to the other side of there's only evidence for this, so this is what I'm going to believe?
I mean, here's the way, again, the way I see things is very different from a lot of people. When it comes to stuff like I said, the Jeffrey Epstein situation, or like a lot of like declassified documents will be like uncensored, or be censored, and you can't really make out what it is. Again, I'll give an example. Like intuition, like I said, Jeffrey Epstein, like people knew that there was some kind of suspicious things going on there. They knew that, there's pictures with certain politicians. There's pictures of Stephen Hawking there. How he got on that island, I don't know, but he was there, right? So, when it comes to like intuition and facts, I think that it really depends on like the severity of the situation. Like I think that you should definitely look at what happened in the situation, whatever, regardless of what it was, and then see if that's in the realm of possibility. Now you can't make sweeping conclusions about it. You can't just say, well, everyone went to some place, everyone was a part of like a certain, organization. You have to like look at exactly how broad a reach is. Like I don't know, like intuition and facts is very much, I would say, a personal thing, because if you have a very high tolerance for facts, that's perfectly fine, but you're going to miss the curve on a lot of things. If you're more of an intuition kind of person rather than facts, you're going to miss a lot of stuff that's based on facts, man. Right? Yeah. So that's one thing I would say. I would say, I don't know, man. Like I don't really have like a process towards like intuition and facts. Yeah. I would just say, if there's here's the thing I will say. If there's a repeated history of something happening, and you know that there's a repeated history of something happening, you can probably use intuition to predict it. Yeah. Right? So I'll give an example. The Canadian government, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Mr. Pierre Trudeau used to arm apartheid South Africa. He sent them arms despite them being embargoed. Now, for those who don't know what apartheid South Africa was, it was a system of governance where people were basically barred from certain occupations because of their race, because of their, the way they looked, and were barred from housing. They were basically told to live on certain plots of land. They couldn't go anywhere, right? That's Trudeau's government, his dad, supplied guns to that country, right? So that's one thing. So whenever you hear people talking about, we got to support this country, you could probably use your intuition as to who's supporting them, right? Depending on where they lie on the world stage. Yeah. I would say, look at the history of behavior, and then you can probably try and draw conclusions. Don't make sweeping conclusions, but try and draw from that.
Absolutely. It's really interesting. You're wearing an NFL jersey.
Appreciate
I don't really follow the NFL. This is what team?
Browns.
Yeah. Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
What player?
Doesn't
matter.
It was Mayfield. That this guy, he got traded like years ago, but the jersey is $15. Yeah. So I bought it, and here we are, man.
Awesome. Yeah. Just to tie that into politics and what we're talking about now, what do you think about the whole Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift combination?
I mean, I don't know. Some people think that it's like a voting thing. It's like, it's all done by like, people that manipulate it. I don't know.
Nothing based on facts.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
You seem more of a facts guy. I ask you that question because I think I'm too heavy on intuition. Yeah. I think obviously, as we've already established, you read way more than I read, and I'm not even saying
too much.
Well, I mean, I don't think too much reading is ever a bad thing. I need to lean more to the facts end of thing, whereas once again, too heavy on intuition. I'm suspicious of that. Of what's going on there.
You should be suspicious of everything, man. If there's one takeaway that people should take away from this episode, you should never trust your government. You should never trust some people. You should never trust higher ups. You should always be suspicious of what's going on. Always ask questions and read. Because if you're able to read, able to know what's going on around the world, people can't really control you. Or people can't really sell their version of the world to you. If you can find objective realities and find objective truths, you should, like I said, build your worldview about what you do know, right? So, like I said, if someone's telling you, hey, we're gonna be giving you free housing, you're like, oh, that's great, man. How are you paying for that housing? You want to explain to me what house is gonna be built? Yeah. You should be wary of things. You should never trust people. You should never take their word for it. Yeah. That's one thing. Here's another thing as well. If you're an immigrant, my parents are immigrants, the people that will screw you over the most are often your own kind. So you should know that. Just putting that out there.
Interesting.
Right. That's something that I've learned, through life, so you should definitely keep that in mind.
Were you're framing that in the context of like an immigrant?
Yeah.
As in other immigrants will screw immigrants?
Yeah,
or you're saying
they will.
Okay.
I won't say very much, but like there's people that I know who were scammed out a lot of money from their own kind, right? So just be wary of that. That's the truth. Yeah. Anyway, so it's going back to the Travis and Taylor thing. I don't really know I don't know. Like I will say, Taylor was politically active at one point. She was very pro-Biden in 2020. There's a picture of her baking Biden cookies. Yeah. Right? Travis, I don't know what the he's doing. I just know he's an NFL player, okay? Yeah. All right, I don't know what he's up to.
Is he good? I don't know.
I don't watch it, all right? As soon as the Browns lost, I turned off the TV. I was like, this game. I stopped watching the playoffs.
That's fair.
But I was very sad that the Tampa Bay lost. I was very disappointed. And also the Detroit lost, but that's a different story. Yeah. Detroit should have won that.
How many teams are left?
2. It's Super Bowl.
Oh, it's Super Bowl.
It's, who is it again? It's Kansas City and who else? Oh, and the 49ers. That's who.
What's your prediction?
I don't have a prediction. I would like to. I would like to see the 49ers win it because they haven't won anything in like a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see. I just want to see Taylor just be like, oh shit, you know, like, oh damn, I support the wrong team.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would say when it comes to stuff like, you know, Travis and, you know, Taylor, there's a lot of wild speculation out there.
Yeah.
But like I said, you know, I would say if there's a behavior, a history of behavior, and you can see what's happening, you can probably extrapolate from that and see what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to ask you this then. You know, you're very, you know, knowledgeable in terms of politics. Who's going to win in November? Who do you think's going to win?
That's a good question. I don't see how it can't be Trump. I'll say that.
That's fair. Okay.
I think it has. I think just from the trends. Do you think Joe Biden's going to run? Is also, I think that's the bigger question. Like, is he even going to run again?
He's an old ass man.
Yeah.
No one knows. Like, I really don't have a prediction because, you know, I honestly thought that Trump might have won 2020.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can see how he lost. And I was wrong about that. So I don't know. Like, people thought that Clinton was an easy win in 2016. And what could have happened?
Yeah.
Right? Clinton got destroyed.
Yeah.
Right? So there's really no sense. I will say this. You can't really just. Sometimes polls are wrong. You know, sometimes the polls are very wrong.
Yeah.
2016 is an example of that, right? Yeah. You know, I would say I don't have a prediction for 2024. I don't know who's going to win. I really don't. It could be RFK. It could be. I don't know. All right. It could be a Kennedy. Who knows? With the way that American politics are, it could be. You never know, man. Yeah. You never know.
100%.
It's a wild situation.
All this speculation. So obviously, like, I don't see any. The only way that it wouldn't be Trump for the Republican side is if he gets like destroyed by this whole prosecution dealing, which once again, maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But then, yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like there has to be some way that they're going to ask Joe Biden to step down because too many people, like, because the Trump supporters still love Trump.
They do.
From 2020, 2016, they still love Trump today.
They still.
The people who loved Biden in 2020 really just hated Trump. I don't think that they're going to vote Biden again.
No, they're not.
They like, but I don't think there's like huge Biden fans more as there's just anti-Trump people.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And the people that are like anti-Trump in terms of like Republicans, they're all voting for Nikki Haley. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think Nikki Haley will get the nomination. I don't think that she has. I don't think so either. I think that she lost both primaries handedly. Yeah. It wasn't even close. It was like double digits, I think. Yeah. I don't think that she has a shot of making it, right? But I will say this as well. I think that when it comes to 2024, we might actually see. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it was RFK. I'm being serious. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Trump or RFK. I would be surprised if it was Biden. And the reason why I say that is because there's a lot of people who don't like, you know, the whole, I guess, you know, what Biden's done, Biden's at least administration. Yeah. They think that it's very. I wouldn't use the word. I don't know. Corrupt might be a stretch. Actually, corrupt wouldn't be a stretch because, you know, we know what terms.
All governments,
you know, right? All governments, right? You know, the laptop story is a very good example of that, where information was suppressed. Yeah. But Twitter was forced to suppress it by the FBI, yeah. Right? So, in terms of like knowing who's going to win in 2024, I guess I wouldn't be surprised if it was Kennedy. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Trump. But if it was Biden, I don't know. I would be very surprised.
Yeah.
That's just the way I see things.
What do you think is the fate of Canada in 2025? Because 2024 is a huge year. I heard that 40% of all people in the world are voting in 2024. So there's like a bunch of countries. Yeah. Biggest Christian country, biggest Muslim country. They're all having elections. Mm-hmm. So obviously Canada's the year after. What do you think? Do you think Trudeau even has a chance?
Oof. I mean, here's what I will say. I think that Trudeau, in terms of, if Trudeau dropped out or he lost the next election to Poilievre, or I don't know, actually Poilievre's the only competitor. Like, NDP's never getting votes. Yeah. They'll never win an election. Green Party doesn't have a shot. Green Party,
think so?
They don't have a shot. They got outvoted by the PPC. The PPC had more votes. The PPC was like, people hate the PPC.
Well, I know Green Party doesn't have a chance, but I'm just thinking with the current population and the uprising of a very seemingly socialist generation that we're a part of. Oh yeah,
that's scary. That's a scary thought.
NDP might one day.
I wouldn't say. I don't think that NDP would win in terms of like a general election.
Yeah.
I think that their ideology scares people in terms of what they want to do with, like, you know, big healthcare or big stuff like that. Yeah. Now, whether you agree with that or not, again, it's up to you. I know I said that a lot in this podcast, but genuinely it's up to you. I'm not going to say what I believe in or don't believe in, but I think it's scary to a lot of people. And I think that when you have like a lot of these like parties that are like radical, so I think that Trudeau is kind of like the midpoint. Midpoint's a stretch, but like a midpoint in terms of like what people have these choices in. You know, people say we have more, Canada's better than America, but it's like, again, we only have like 2 parties you can realistically vote for that's going to win. Yeah. You can vote for NDP, but they're not going to get much more than like, what, 30 seats at most? Yeah. There's that as well. Like when it comes to stuff like, I don't know, people said that Gen Z is going to be like this very conservative generation. It's actually very liberal, very progressive, like you said. It's very socialist, which I think is a bit scary.
I agree.
Because as someone whose parents were from a communist country, I can see what that leads to. Yeah. Socialism is literally down the street from communism. Yeah. It's literally down the road. And like I said, a lot of these ideologies, they start off at the fringes. That's when it comes to like censorship or free speech. These things start off at the fringes, and they kind of move ever more inwards. Yeah. Right. So you have what's going to happen now with stuff like I don't know, like socialism, where it's like, again, it started off here, but let's be honest here, socialism, if you said you were a socialist 30 years ago, you were never going to get elected. Yeah. Right now it's like, oh hell yeah, man, I get them, get those people, get those bankers on Bay Street, get them. But it's not like that anymore. So I think that we might actually see, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if Pierre won. If Trudeau won, I would be a bit more surprised, because judging by the way that Canada's unfolded under his reign, I wouldn't be surprised if he lost. But if he won, that'd be a big surprise to me. Yeah. Because I think that if he lost his next election and he ran again, he would never win. I genuinely believe that if Trudeau lost, he could not run again, because he would probably get crushed, or he wouldn't have a chance of making it out of the primaries.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yeah. It's very rare that a leader of a country can ever run again after an election loss.
Well, there's like exceptions to that, right? Like you have like Lula in Brazil, who was the president in like the early 2000s, and the run against was like, I think, voted out, and then ran against Bolsonaro in Brazil, and then got elected again. So it's non-consecutive president. Trump might be another example of that.
I can see that. I mean, just like it doesn't happen more than it happens less than it not happening.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean. Like you have like in American history, you have like people like Howard Taft, who was a non-consecutive president, and Grover Cleveland, who was also another non-consecutive president. So there's times in history that it's happened, but it's not very often. Yeah. Right. I mean, if you want to say Putin in Russia, you could say Putin, because technically he wasn't a president for 3 years when Medvedev was the president. Yeah. But hey, I think that we all know that who pulled the strings in that situation. That's all I'm going to say, you know. But that's one of those things where it happens. Like non-consecutive presidents happen. Now, whether or not, I think that it really banks on the legacy, because I think that's all in terms of nostalgia, right? If you were like a kid underneath, like, I don't know, an NDP prime minister, and life was good, you're gonna be like, hell yeah, I want that again. I want to be just like I was in the early 90s. But then, reality hits you, and you're like, damn, maybe regulating everything and taxing everything is not the best way to go about things. You know, but what do I know? I only, what do I know? I'm just some kid.
That's fair. Yeah, you know your shit.
I wouldn't say that, but
your shit. I feel like I've talked to a lot of people on here, and most people aren't interested in the things you're interested in. And I am someone who wants to learn about it. This is an awesome conversation.
I appreciate it.
I enjoy listening to you. To go into something less serious.
Let's go on.
Campus. Obviously, your first year, you're not on campus.
No.
You got to cook for yourself. I don't. I get the luxury of walking into the dining hall every single day.
Yeah.
You're big time, not big time, but I saw you're interested in cooking, baking.
Yeah. I mean, I like to do that kind of stuff. Like I've worked in the kitchen I was in the restaurant industry for 2 years. That was fun because, you got to be around people.
And you're still working in a restaurant?
Yeah, part-time.
Part-time.
Got to pay the bills somehow.
Yeah.
So I will say this about restaurants. Another word of unsolicited advice for people out there, right? If you want to get a first job, do not go in the restaurant industry, especially as a cook or dishwasher, because it is very tense. It's very, I would say, there's a lot of emotion in that industry. It's very angry, right? Not angry is a stretch, but like very tense, because it's people who, they need to get things done. And a lot of times it's people who abuse, because it's a very stressful job. You have to be like managing 50 different orders or stuff like that. So I would not recommend it. If you feel like you have an iron brain and an iron mind, you can do it then. Like my first job was in a restaurant because I was the only people hiring. This is circa 2021. Yeah. That was fun. So yeah, I kind of worked in it, but cooking's a lot of fun. Restaurants are fun. If you want to make a career in it, you can. but it does take schooling. If you want to go through like the whole or old-fashioned way of getting experience, that's not going to get you anywhere. For example, I have 2 years experience as a line cook. I'm never going to get like a job as a sous chef, which is, there's dishwasher, then there's line cooks, then there's sous chefs, then there's like management.
So that thing with cooking, you're saying you need education. What do you think about the general idea of like experience versus school nowadays?
It's a very philosophical question.
It is.
It's really, really deep.
Because you're in economics. And
yeah.
What do you want to do after?
Oh, I want to go into investing. Definitely banking or investing. That's definitely a very fun industry for me. Yeah. I think that when it comes to stuff, actually seeing how money grows and how money moves the world, I would like to have money. I think we all would. I would like to be able to have a Rolex on my wrist, but that's not going to happen right now because you see it's barren. But what I will say is what I will say about in terms of education versus experience, it depends on the job, right? Are you going to hire a guy who, I don't know, would you hire a guy that has a Bachelor of Arts from Harvard for, I don't know, what's a good, I'm blanking, I'm trying to think of a degree, but engineering, there you go. You have engineering from Harvard, you have a guy that was building bridges for 40 years. Well, the guy building bridges from 40 years ago was using 40-year-old building plans and schematics. The guy that has a Harvard degree was probably educated and probably did a co-op in something to do with engineering, right? Yeah. I think that it definitely depends on the job. It depends on what you're applying for. Yeah. And in some ways, experience does trump education. I would say that in some ways it does, but in some ways, education does trump experience. Makes sense. I think that it would depend on. I think that education would trump experience in terms of stuff like less skilled jobs. Less skilled. I shouldn't say less skilled because being a cook is a skilled job. All right. No matter what people tell you, you're still just as valid for working at McDonald's. I want you to know that. All right. You're just still as brave and beautiful as everyone else. All right.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you.
So exactly. So I would say in jobs that wouldn't require a lot of stuff to get into, it would definitely be experience. But when it comes to stuff that actually needs a proper degree and a proper education and co-op, definitely, education would be there. You can't be an accountant. You can't be a self-taught accountant, right? That's just not going to happen. Yeah. But having at least a degree on something like that would definitely help, right? Yeah. I would say that that's where it trumps. What about you? What do you think?
No, that makes sense. Absolutely. I don't know if I'm trusting, once again, accountant, engineer, all these types of things. You just feel safer with the education. When it comes to things like, for me, what I am aspiring to be, we're both studying economics, but I feel like we're in slightly different directions. Our angles are a little bit different. I'm looking to get into business, entrepreneurship. That seems more of an experience-oriented industry, if you want to call it, versus something like investment banking.
Yeah. Definitely it is. Yeah. Entrepreneurship is a very fun degree. I would, at least a fun, job market. Yeah. So definitely go for it, man. Why not? What's stopping you?
There you go.
Yeah, man. So I guess when it comes to stuff like entrepreneurship, that's definitely fun. What makes it so experienced though? Because I don't really know much about that whole field. Yeah,
I mean, it's just the lessons, the ups and downs of, I guess, getting through. You can't teach the I don't know if it's the rigor. I don't know. There's a certain amount of, I guess, putting yourself in the fire that comes with business. And I can't really speak from experience. I'm just a student. You know what I mean? But I think it changes you as a person in a way that, reading from a book can't. Like, you have to change deep down in your core. This is very emotional language. I know it doesn't really might not appease to your.
No, it is, man. It's really heartfelt.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's getting to me. I'm tearing up.
Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah.
But no, I would just say that, and we'll see what happens in the future. I think that action at the end of the day is the main thing. I think that there's a struggle, like we were talking about with men in particular. I mean, is it even men in particular when it comes to like this sort of, they call it mental masturbation that people go through, where it's like you're watching motivational people, even like reading. Once again, I don't know exactly what you enact if you like are reading about investing or reading about economics, all this stuff. But I think a lot of people get too kind of obsessed with just like information. I want to know about this. I want to learn this. I want to, and not to do anything with it. You know what I mean? They like the feeling of sitting there, feeling like they're doing things productively because they're taking in information, but then not actually doing anything with it.
Exactly. What's the point of watching Khan Academy or watching all these investing videos if you're never going to actually dump money into it?
Yeah.
It's the biggest waste of time ever. A friend of mine, my boy, my good friend Yasser, had this really good quote where he said, the worst thing you can do about work is actually pretending to work, right? That's the worst time. That's the worst waste of time. Yeah. Right? I'm butchering the quote because I didn't sleep very much, but he's basically that's the point, is that if you spend your time pretending to do shit, you're wasting your time. And time's a valuable resource. Time is the biggest commodity that I think, if time was a thing you could buy, be the most expensive commodity ever. Yeah. Because you only have such a limited amount of time on this earth. Yeah. Make the most of it. Don't go for a degree that you're gonna hate. Don't go for a job you're gonna hate. Just because it pays well doesn't mean that it's actually worth it. Like, people give shit to Jordan Peterson a lot, but Jordan Peterson is right about this. I will say, he said that if you're in a job or career or even degree that you hate, and you're on that, even though it pays well, there's less good of you remains after 10 years. It ages you significantly, and it's true. Yep. It ages you a lot, man. If you're in a degree where if you're in a job every single day you want to blow your brains out, you're gonna hate your life. You're gonna become a very just nasty person to be around. So go for what really speaks to you. And I'm not saying go and get a degree in something that's useless, like lesbian dance theory. Please don't do that. It's a waste of money. That money can be spent on different things. Yeah. All right. So go for something that's actually gonna pay you well. Like, that's another thing that you mentioned about experience was education, right? The trades are an example of where experience trumps education, right? So I would say, when it comes to stuff like the trades, I think that we pushed way too many people into the college and university. There's some people here that I've met, and some people I've also met, when I was much younger, who went to university who were as dumb as a rock. Yep. They should not be in this. They should not be in education. I'm not saying that I'm smart. I don't think I'm smart at all. I think I'm just some guy who can just read. I'm literate. That's all I think I am, right? But I will say, like, we push people who don't even really fit the mold of university or even college or even these kinds of these post-secondary institutions, just because everyone needs to go to college. This guy that was pumping gas for you, he needs to get a degree from Harvard. He needs to get a degree from the state university. It's like, why? Maybe some people aren't fit for university. Maybe some people are more fit for things that are more hands-on. Yeah. Right? I think that we should stop pushing people into certain categories. I think one of the worst things you can do, especially as like a teacher, I don't know if there's any teachers watching this, but I think that the worst thing you can do as a teacher is pushing people into categories and be like, you know what, you really excel at this, you should do this. And I would say no. I think the best thing that you should do, and this is something that I also experienced firsthand when I was in guidance, when I dropped my math course, when I was doing night school, right? I had a guidance counselor telling me, you're really good with writing. You should be going to the trades. I remember looking at her being like, you are slow. All right, being like, there's no way you're just telling me because I can write an essay, I should go into the trades, right? Maybe you should try and say, hey, there's an option here. That's what it is. No, she was physically telling me, no, you'd be really good as a bricklayer. You'd be fantastic as an HVAC technician. It's like, really? Really? Yeah. Right? So you stuff like that, where you have people pushing in another person in this category and kind of like marketing them towards it, right? I think one of the worst things you can do is to a person is like categorize people and then like be like, oh, the problem is this. And it's like, well, actually, no, the problem is a bunch of other things. You can't simplify things. Life is not simple. Yeah. All right? Life is very complex. There's a lot of details. And there's another thing there's also another, crazy thing I've learned. Two things can be true at the same time. Yeah. All right. Just because you're part of category A doesn't mean you can't be a part of category B. You could be, I don't know, like gay and vote for conservative. You could be straight and vote for liberal. Like there's two things can be at the same time. Right. I'm not going after people. I'm just saying there's like the stereotype that like people that are vote a certain way, behave a certain way. I'm just saying like it doesn't mean that, right? There's two things to be true at the same time. So I would say we push people in these categories, which is not good. I think that's a very dangerous idea. Yeah. I think another big thing, now this is going to get me in a lot of trouble, so I'm just going to say this right now. I think that when you admit people based on the color of their skin, I think that affirmative action is one of the most dangerous things you can do. Agree. I think that is a very dangerous policy. Yep. I think that is, now you can disagree with me all you want, I think that's racism. I personally believe that. It is. Like, you're really admitting me because, I had melanin in my skin. I think I think that's a very, very dangerous idea. Absolutely. Right? And I remember one time I was in grade 11, a long time ago, and when I was in school, there were still dinosaurs walking around. I just want you to know that, right? So I had a grade 11 English teacher, and she was like trying to explain to my class. I'll never forget this. For some reason, this like of all the things from grade 11, which I did not remember, this is the one thing that really clicked in my mind. And she was trying to explain to us how affirmative action was like this like beautiful, just very, what was the word that she used? Very justice oriented policy. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, you are literally advocating for the same shit that people that advocated for Jim Crow would say.
Yeah.
The same people who advocated for segregation but say the same thing,
yeah.
right? Oh, we have to stop. We have these people. We have to. Segregation. There was actually an argument done by segregationists, which they said segregation is good because it lets black people catch up. Now, I'm sorry, all right, but telling me that I can't sit at the same table as my friend who's black, come on.
Yeah.
What, catching up to me? What the fuck is he catching up to me for? Right? Yeah. Like the same arguments that people are being used are the same things that people that were advocating for literally the most like discriminatory practices are still using, or we're using at the different point.
It's crazy to see now that the racist people are the ones saying you should not be hired differently based on the color of your skin. Those are the racist ones nowadays.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing a bunch of like, I don't know how much you know about DEI, but United Airlines is doing this thing where now half of all the pilots have to be women.
Yeah.
Like, that seems crazy. First of all, like 90% of the pilots that exist are men.
Yeah.
So that means you have to go into the kindergarten classes and find a bunch of 6-year-old girls and say, who wants to be a pilot? Maybe one raises her hand, and then you take 6 more and think, no. You guys are going to be pilots. We're going to raise you to be pilots because we need 50%. It's crazy.
100%.
So,
I mean, you're not exactly wrong at that. That's exactly true. I think that when you start telling people, hey, you know what, we need more representation of a certain kind of person in a field, it's like, well, actually, I think we should let people decide for themselves, right? And you're not wrong about that, 100%. Yeah. I think that when you start going around telling people, hey, you know, I know that you're really good in art. I know that you love to draw. You know, you draw those stick figures so beautifully. Your camera's going a little crazy, man.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, anyway. But
yours is still good. I'll let you finish up your point, and then we'll finish it off.
Yeah. So I think that when you draw the stick figure so beautifully, man, you know, I think that you'd probably be better off as a pilot somewhere driving a Boeing 737 or that plane, right? And then this little girl just looks at you being like, I'm the second grade. Yeah. Please get away from me. Yeah. Right? So, you know, I would say that's a very dangerous policy when you start telling people, hey, you know, even though like you should be able, we believe in the biggest like criticism I have of affirmative actions, especially those things where it's like we need more representation in these certain fields, that it basically goes against the ideas of free will, which is what our country's based off of, which is what a lot of free countries are based off of, which is that you have the choice. You want to work as McDonald's cashier, you can. You want to work at you want to spend your money on X good, go ahead, you can, right? We believe in certain unalienable rights. We believe in certain things that you can do with your money. But what ends up happening as a result of that is you now have people being like, no, you don't have the choice to go into that career. You have to go into this, which I think is dangerous. That goes against the foundations of a free society, I think.
Absolutely. I completely agree. This has been a pleasure having you here.
Thanks for having me.
My camera's dead. You know what? I'm going to join you on this couch to do the outro.
Appreciate it.
If you don't mind.
Appreciate
you having taken the time when we're getting so close to midterms.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to listen to you. I generally don't rewatch my own episodes, but I'm going to rewatch this one.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I was honestly just sitting in that chair as a fan. You've made me realize how uneducated I am.
I'm uneducated.
I appreciate you coming in here and doing this.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
All right? See you around. Take it easy, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, VoV Podcast, every Sunday, like the interview. Follow us on Instagram @VoicesOfVic, and we will see you next episode. Peace out.
See you.